So it's been a while since I posted the first episode, and to be fair, I do have an excuse. I have played way too much and fell in love with the game. I just couldn't get myself to stop playing, you know? It's not a good excuse, I know. Anyway, before I actually start, I do want to tell you that if you end up enjoying this video, why not leave a like, comment, or even subscribe? Let's get straight into it. As I stated previously, the rest of the playthrough will be scripted videos where I go over what happened during the playthrough rather than going for live commentary. I took a bunch of notes and now I shall go through them. First up are quests, more specific the hunt quest in the early game to defeat pilgrim enemies and take their shoal. Works pretty interesting as you have to take them off their corpses and said bodies actually get, well, naked. I feel like in general quests sometimes require too many kills though to be fun, but it kinda depends on what you find too many. At the end of the quest, you also have a notification that the objectives have been updated alongside the text color of the final item being different. It's slightly yellow, which is a pretty nice detail to let you know that you finished the quest. One funny detail I have observed is that Hornet can do a little dance, both by walking normally left to right and spamming that, or by also doing this with the sprint in the later parts of the game. I also ended up finding the first flea of the playthrough. I believe they are even cuter than the grubs. I know, that's blasphemy. How could I say such a thing? Well, they do sound cuter, I'd like to mention, and they're also fluffy, so they would be fun to pet. Either way, the fleas do return to where the troop is in that moment, and they fly around, they float, and they just react to you being present. Neat detail to make it similar to the grubs in their nest from Hollow Knight. I did find an area that I believe will end up being the ant area, but there was a big ant in front of it that I just couldn't defeat. It's kind of unfortunate really that I couldn't get in there this early, but you know, knowing now what is in there, I'm kind of happy. I did try a bunch of times, but I felt like I needed something better, like any form of upgrade, damage, or movement to just be able to defeat that guy, so I will be returning later. One of the NPCs we knew about for a long time has made their appearance. Grindel is here and already wants to steal stuff. Bro, I just got you out of jail, how about you take a break? Anyway, right above him is also the first offensive tool that I got, which is the straight pin. Not sure how much I will be using these tools, as I do plan on playing mainly with the needle swings, but they might be coming in useful later if I need to spam for some damage. I also found out how to activate the platform in that very long room from last time, and on the other side of it, there seems to be the first two bellhead enemies. It is interesting how they made enemies that you literally just can't pogo off of their head in order to cheese them. Usually they did that by giving them shields, which technically act the same way but can be circumvented, or they gave enemies attacks upwards. A bit further from those guys was the entrance into Deep Docks. It is interesting that the map shows you the benches even if they are not purchased / are inactive. It is a nice detail though, so you know to return into an area later when you have the needed money. The burning coal floors, I really thought you needed sprint in order to cross them, but it does look like if you just jump on the spot or just jump around, you can avoid being burned. Since enemies can also be burned by this, I do really wonder if elemental damage will be a thing more often, or if this burning effect is just a way to deal some damage with fancy visuals. A bit later I had to face off against some ant enemies, and I will be honest, these guys were really annoying for early game. The baby ants were okay since they were really basic, but the bipedal ones were awful to deal with since they are tanky and move a lot. Plus they have ranged attacks. Then again, you as Hornet also have a lot more movement and a lot more healing. It was pretty much a case of skill issue on my part. After that I made it to a Weaver Shrine, or Grave, or whatever they are called, and acquired the ability to sprint. I remember in Hollow Knight that sprint was behind a charm, but this time we get it as an ability, and honestly it's a lot of fun. You can run fast to get from one room to another quickly, but you also get a cool diagonal jump when jumping while sprinting. Helps a lot in some parkour areas and to even skip some pogos. Going deeper into the deep docks, I end up meeting Lace for the first time. One tiny problem I had was that it was a boss fight and I didn't go down an earlier hatch to sit at the closer bench. So one run back and bench unlock later, I was fighting Lace again. The fight itself feels a lot like the Hornet fight from the first game, and I feel like it makes sense since they put her around the same point in the progression. At least that's how I feel like. A bunch of dashes that span the arena, some basic ground attacks, and also an AoE attack similar to the Silksong that Hornet did in the first game. I enjoyed the fight, and I am honestly looking forward to the next time we face Lace, as from the trailers we know there will be at least one more fight in the area with the flowers. Though, one neat detail I found is that when you die, Lace left just like the generic anime diva or villainess. It's quite a nice little detail with her very over-the-top personality that she has. With Lace out of the way, I was able to go further to the right and enter the far fields. I did see a lot more ants, including new types that are even harder to deal with, but I pushed past them and... oh god, what is that thing in the background? Why is this guy here? I entered, and it was obviously an arena for the fight, but nothing happened. So is this just a destroyed version of the dude? Maybe we're gonna fight one later and this was just a teaser? Anyway, I went further and ended up in an area with a bunch of air currents and balloons. There I met the seamstress who promised to give me an upgrade if I bring a bunch of enemy materials. Again, needing way too much in my opinion. Going for 25 of those was easy, but it kinda took a while. After bringing back the materials, I was granted the Drifter's Cloak, which will allow me to use air currents to get out of this area. It does look very funny when you actually use it. Umbrella Hornet is a thing, I guess. In the same room, there was some parkour with the new mechanic, with the air currents, that ended up giving me a mask shard. That's a really nice thing to get. Well, that's pretty much for this episode. This will be way shorter, as doing them in a scripted manner, I can kinda take out the fluff, like me taking 50 minutes to get spikes for the Seamstress quest. This way, I also think that you guys will be able to still find cool details even though you watch my videos, so it's not all out there when you get to play the game. I will also go into my thoughts, but I think that is better left for a review / the final episode. Not sure in which one. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, I also hope to see you all in the next one.